If you've ever wondered why two businesses in the exact same industry, in the exact same neighborhood, could get different cleanup orders or have different cleanup costs, fate and transport is probably the reason. At sites like old dry cleaners, plating shops, and gas stations, this plays out every day. Because solvents such as PCE or TCE or other materials can move through soil as vapors and enter nearby buildings. There may be oil or petroleum products from leaking tanks that dissolve and then travel with groundwater. Metals from plating operations or other manufacturing don't just vanish. They'll settle into new forms in soil or sediment. And even more everyday products like fertilizers, pesticides, or the forever chemicals, PFAS, that were used in products like nonstick coating and food production, can migrate far beyond where they started from. Every one of these materials will have its own fate and transport story. And it is that story that determines where the contamination goes, how long it lasts, and ultimately, who might be responsible for cleaning it up. Fate and transport isn't just a scientific term. It is actually the backbone of environmental law. And that is especially true when we're talking about properties that may be required to have investigation and remediation of their conditions. When a chemical or another product is released into the environment, its fate determines what happens to it. Is it going to degrade into other products? Will it transform into a different form? Is it going to stick around? And it's the transportation part that tells us how it's going to move. Is that through soil, air, or water? These decide where contamination ends up, and it's what we look at when we're trying to determine who's legally responsible for it. Under laws like CERCLA, the Clean Water Act, or California's cleanup laws, liability often comes down to one simple question. Did your pollutant end up somewhere that it shouldn't have? Because if contaminants from your property are migrating onto a neighbor's property, you could be responsible even if you didn't cause the original spill. It's being transported someplace it shouldn't be. And that's why two neighboring businesses could face very different outcomes. One side's contaminants might break down quickly or stay contained, and the others could travel underground and show up in a drinking water well. The science of fate and transport draws those invisible boundaries, and the law is based on them. Cleanup standards and insurance coverage can also depend on these principles. And when regulators are trying to determine what kind of laws should have, they'll regularly rely on modeling and sampling using fate and transport to determine how far they think contaminants can travel, what form they may be in, and whether they pose a risk. Those answers dictate how much cleanup might be required and who ultimately will pay for it. In the end, environmental law is really about this, the fate and transport. Where did something go and what did it become? That gives us the science behind the law, and it is the reason why accountability does not always stop at a property's fence line.